Verse 27. Out of pity for him, the Lord of that slave released him and forgave him the debt. Here's a question I want to ask you. It's a very simple answer, but it's one that we so easily miss. By the way, pity here isn't pity in the English. Isn't pity the way we think of pity. Pity in the Greek is from the seat of your compassion. It's from that emotional place where you can't help but feel for someone. Okay? Out of pity, the king forgave him his debt. Here's my question. It's as easy to miss. Did the king forgive him because he made promises? Or did the king forgive him because the king is big-hearted and has pity? And the answer is easy. You know, I'm not tricking you. The answer is simple, but it's easy to run past this. The king ignores this in much the same way the father ignores the prodigal son that comes back and goes, I'll be as one of your hired hands. The father doesn't even listen to that garbage. I don't need another hired hand. I got hired hands. I want kids. I put a lot into you. I want you back. So the king doesn't say, I forgive you. Hey, don't forget, next week is your first installment. Now, I don't want to bash us as ministers or the church. I love ministry and I love the church, and I hope we can do better. But we, for a long time, have played bookkeeping gospel, where we have poured pity onto people during the amazing grace part of the invitation, only to remind them with a swift elbow to the ribs, either on their way out of church this week or in the follow-up new convert phone call next week, that there's some things expected of you now that you have received the goodness of God. Basically, what we're doing is saying, here's your bill, pay as you can, but pay. And really what has happened to a lot of us is that Christianity has become us trying to square that bill with the house, even though the debt was way more than we could ever pay. And so we came in to be saved, forgiven of our sins, but then we went to work to repay the forgiveness. Right? This is why you get exhausted, by the way, with the faith. This is why we all wore out. That's why we wanted to quit. I mean, it was... Can I go back to the silliness? It's $10 million. I mean, what good are you doing? Here's my $10. It's all I got this week. You go, all right, see you next week. Is this ever going to end? No, you missed the part where I get your kids and your grandkids forever. This never ends. You can't pay this back. That's the point of grace. You got to see the sin so big so that grace makes sense. It's got to be big, or you're going to try to pay it back. And guess what? Even when it's big, you're going to try to pay it back, because that's our nature. And so the king in the story doesn't forgive it because the man promises. The king in the story forgives because of his pity. I like to think of it this way. God's gut reaction right here was, forgive him. The head reaction, the make sense reaction, the accountant reaction, figure out how to get your money back. God's gut reaction, forgive him. You got to forgive him. He's in over his head. Because God doesn't forgive you based on your promises. God forgives you based on God's pity. God doesn't forgive you based on how good you are. God forgives you based on how good God is. Oh, let me just live right there for a second. Very good. God doesn't do anything for you because he's found his one. Look at him. He's so smart. I got the one that knows how to read the Bible. Look at this guy, so good at knocking on doors. Oh, look at him. He doesn't tithe 10%, he tithes 15%. Oh, look at her. She's such a good worshiper. See how she closes her eyes during worship and puts her hands up in the air and dances around? She's so good at this. She's so good at this. No, he's not good to you because you're good. He's good to you because he's good. He's just a good God. He doesn't need what you have. He just wants you. So out of pity, he forgives the entire debt. And this takes me back to that principle. What did I tell you? Forgiveness is a kind of death. Death to your rights of vengeance, death to your rights to be righted, death to your rights to reclaim the debt. So what? Let's slow step here. What did the king actually do in regards to the debt? He died. He killed himself. He died. What did God do in regards to the debt? He came to earth as a man, and he walked with his head up Calvary's hill, And he made all things new. And how did he do it? In the worst possible way we think kings would ever do it. Kings are supposed to win, not lose. Kings are supposed to kill, not be killed. And yet he goes to the cross and he suffers and he dies, not so that he can flip the tables and someday come back and be the guy that swings the sword, but so that we will learn that the only way you're going to win is to lose. The only way you're going to resurrect is to die. The only way you're going to follow Jesus is to lay the stuff down and say, here am I, Lord, send me. And so what does the king do to the debt? He dies to it. He dies to getting his money back. He goes, I'm done. You don't owe me anything. I die to getting it back. You are forgiven of the debt. And he does it out of the pity of his heart.